Ethan dropped the words into his coffee like sugar. Casual, careless, certain they'd dissolve. He thought he was stirring peace. He was actually stirring my ending. "Clara's coming to Santorini," he said, eyes glued to his phone. "And Adrian, too." He didn't look up, didn't blink. Just sipped his espresso as if he hadn't just invited our ghosts to our anniversary trip. I set my mug down, not a slam, not a tremor. Just a pause long enough for silence to take shape. "Clara and Adrian," I repeated, as if saying their names might make them vanish. He nodded. "Closure," he said, like the word was holy. "It'll be good for everyone." That word, closure, hung between us like a dare. 3 weeks from our 10th anniversary. We were supposed to be alone, somewhere quiet, but instead he'd planned a reunion with the 2 people who once dismantled me. Clara, his ex who still texted him every birthday. Adrian, my almost husband, who left me 3 days before the wedding and a lifetime before forgiveness. Ethan smiled, proud of his enlightenment. "We've evolved," he said. "This is growth." Healing. It wasn't just arrogance, it was certainty, the kind that only comes from a man who's never been on the losing side of empathy. He expected me to nod, to serve charcuterie on the ashes of my past, and call it progress. So I didn't speak. That night, his strategy circle came over. The same 3 men who still thought they were philosophers. Because they owned matching whiskey glasses. Laughter filled the house, all ego and echoes. "So she's fine with it?" one of them asked, nodding toward me as if I were furniture. Ethan grinned. "Totally. Leah's evolved. She's not threatened. We're doing this as adults. Cheers to emotional maturity." Another chimed. They toasted. To themselves. I carried the empty glasses back to the kitchen. Grace, our housekeeper, stood by the sink, her knitting untouched. She always pretended not to hear, but tonight she didn't bother pretending. "They think you'll play along," she said softly. "Smile. Pour drinks, stay small." I turned on the faucet, watched the water run cold over my hands. "I probably will," I said. But evolution has 2 sides, and only one of us was actually changing. By midnight, the laughter had curdled. The living room echoed with the sound of men congratulating themselves for surviving feelings they'd never actually faced. Ethan didn't love winning. He loved the applause that came with pretending he'd earned it. He raised his glass, eyes glossy. "To emotional courage," he slurred. "To Leah, proof that women can get over anything." They cheered. I smiled. Let them believe it. But something inside me shifted, a small, precise fracture, the kind you don't hear until the walls start falling. Not rage, not noise, just the quiet click of a lock turning. And I was the one holding the key. The dishwasher hummed, but I didn't start it. I needed the silence more than I needed clean plates. Upstairs, Ethan's white noise machine whispered fake ocean waves, masking a conscience that never learned to swim. I sat in the kitchen under one tired bulb and opened my laptop. Not to work, not to browse, just to see. Our joint account blinked on the screen. A beach villa in Santorini. $25,000. He hadn't even mentioned it, not to me, just to his audience of peers. That's how far we'd drifted. My money spoke to him more often than I did. People ask why you stay. It's never one reason. It's 1,000 tiny concessions disguised as love. The first time you cover for him, it's loyalty. The 10th, it's habit. By the 100th, you've built a life so quiet around his noise that you forget what your own voice sounds like. I didn't stay because I was weak. I stayed because I thought endurance was the same thing as partnership. I scrolled through months of transactions, restaurants I'd never eaten at, hotels I'd never seen, wine I'd never ordered. Each charge was a breadcrumb leading back to Clara's posts, the same cities, the same weekends, the same lies dressed as business. Excuses rose up like old reflexes and died just as quickly. I wasn't a partner in this marriage. I was the line item funding his image. Every email he sent, every compliment he absorbed, was polished by my invisible hand. And somewhere between his client summits and her captions, my income disappeared, drained into the myth of his brilliance. I opened the cupboard and pulled down my chipped mug, the one from the apartment before him, before us. The handle wobbled, but it held. For a second, my hands shook, not from fear, but recognition. I'd been here before, only this time I wasn't the one waiting to be forgiven. He mistook my stillness for surrender. He didn't realize silence was where I sharpened. Poker night died at 12:13 a.m. Right on schedule, 4 hours. That's how long it always took for Ethan to perform charm-like theater, for his friends to mistake arrogance for brilliance, and for me to fade into the wallpaper they pretended not to see. The last car finally backed down the driveway. The kitchen was still, a battlefield of whiskey rings and half-eaten truffle cheese. The air reeked of celebration and rot. Then a soft knock. Grace stood in the doorway, barefoot, her wine glass trembling, just enough to betray her nerves. She closed the door behind her like she was sealing a secret. "They're betting on you," she said. "They think this is a game," Grace whispered. "It is," I said. "They're wrong about the ending." I didn't flinch. That was the night I stopped being the story they told and started writing my own. "Caleb thinks you'll cancel the trip. Darren says you'll go but break by day 2. Mark?" She hesitated. "Mark said you'll smile through it, then disappear quietly after." The faucet was running. I turned it off slowly. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, dense, heavy with something unspoken. "You're telling me this because," I asked, though I already knew. "Because I can't keep watching it," she said softly. "You serving them, smiling like it doesn't hurt." I should have said something sooner. I nodded once. Not in forgiveness, but recognition. It takes a certain kind of courage to speak after too long of saying nothing. Grace set her glass down beside the sink. "They think this is a game. That you're some kind of experiment in forgiveness." "It is," I said evenly. She blinked, startled by how calm I was. "They're wrong about the ending, though," I added. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. I reached behind the toaster and pulled out an envelope, crisp, white, deliberate. Inside was a single-page spreadsheet. Grace unfolded it carefully, her eyes scanning the lines, expenses, dates, accounts. At the bottom, one sentence in bold, "Exit plan initiated." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You're leaving." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She exhaled, almost smiling. "They won't see it coming?" "They never do," I said. The clock glowed 12:22 a.m. I walked her to the door. No goodbyes, just a single squeeze of her hand before she disappeared into the night. Upstairs, I heard the bedroom door creak. "You coming up?" Ethan called. I looked toward the staircase, the same path I'd walked 1,000 times out of habit, not choice. "In a minute," I said. His door shut. Silence reclaimed the house. I opened my laptop, not to scroll, not to stall, to begin. By morning, the world would look the same, but the foundation was already shifting. And I was the one drawing the fault line. I moved like a surgeon. No wasted motion, no noise, just clean cuts through the numbers. Truth doesn't shout. It stacks. Click by quiet click, I traced the statements, then deeper, credit history. There it was, a card I'd never seen. Statements routed to his office. Charges from the cities he visited for work, lining up perfectly with Clara's geotags. $18,000, dinners, hotels, retail. My name never appeared, but my income signed every bill. He thought subtlety made him clever. It only made him predictable. I opened a spreadsheet. I itemized. I cross-referenced charges with travel dates. I added screenshots from Clara's feed. When I finished, it wasn't a suspicion. It was a case. At 6:45 a.m., his alarm bleated. At 7:03, Ethan wandered into the kitchen in the shirt I'd ironed yesterday. Same careless kiss. "Coffee smells amazing, babe." He didn't see the laptop open in plain sight. He never did. "Smells amazing," he repeated, reaching for the toast I'd cut diagonally, always diagonally. He buttered it with the confidence of a man who had never been interrupted by consequence. "We should talk about that trip," he said, outlining logistics like an event planner, Clara's schedule, Adrian's flight, Sophie's excitement. I let him perform. "We'll show people we're past all that," he added, topping off his cup. "Clara says it's rare to meet couples this secure." Secure. I took a sip of my coffee and gave him exactly what he expected. Nothing. He kept talking. Podcasts, modern attachment dynamics, controlled exposure, closure. "You're strong enough now," he said, smiling like he was gifting me a medal for endurance. I nodded once. Then I texted Rhea one word. Emergency. When Ethan left for work, I brewed a second pot, this one for me. At 10 o'clock, a banker slid forms across a desk, new accounts, new passwords, no access for him. By noon, my consulting deposits had a safe destination. By 1 o'clock, the safe deposit box was mine alone. My grandmother's jewelry, my passport, every document that mattered. At 2:15, I called Maya Cortez. We hadn't spoken since college. She didn't ask why. She just said, "I've got time. Tell me everything." So I did. Not with rage, not with tears. Item by item, like a ledger read aloud. Because a decade of erasing yourself teaches a final lesson. Freedom begins when you name every transaction he mistook for love. The story he scripted said I would endure. The file I built said otherwise. That night, I served him his favorite pasta, and a silence so complete it could have been mistaken for peace. He thought he was eating dinner. He was actually eating the last calm moment of his old life. Ethan twirled spaghetti, talked about quarterly bonuses, and didn't notice the quiet tightening around him. He never did. By the time his snores synced with the ceiling fan's hum, I was back at my desk, the real work beginning. The beach villa came first. Family emergency, I typed. Unforeseen complications. The agent replied with apologies. Refund in 10 business days, minus a $2,000 fee. Acceptable loss. The airline was simpler. I canceled using miles. They'd flow back to the joint account, the one I planned to empty soon enough. The yacht rental, canceled for weather concerns. The private chef, the spa itinerary, the wine tasting, the Jeep rental. Each plan, each luxury, each performance of perfection, erased, one confirmation email at a time. Every click felt like pulling a thread from a suit he didn't deserve to wear. By dawn, $25,000 of fantasy had unraveled into digital dust. Ethan slept soundly upstairs, dreaming of beaches and borrowed admiration. He wouldn't check his inbox until lunch. By then, I'd be several moves ahead. At 7:10 a.m., I poured his coffee. He complimented the eggs, scrolled through his phone, smug in routine. Then, ping, one unread email. I watched his face shift, confusion, then irritation. "What the hell?" he muttered. "The villa, did you cancel something?" I didn't look up. "No." Another ping, then another. His breathing thickened. His composure cracked just enough to reveal the man beneath the performance. "Did you talk to someone about the trip?" he asked, voice sharpening. I stirred my coffee. "No." He left in a storm of disbelief, muttering about glitches and incompetence. I smiled, the first real one in weeks. By noon, Grace sent screenshots. "Caleb, Ethan, what's going on? Clara says the whole trip's off, Darren." "You didn't tell her yet? Bro, seriously?" Mark. Maybe Leah figured it out. That'd explain it, they knew. They'd always known. I forwarded the thread to Maya. Evidence, she'd told me. Keep everything. At 2 p.m., her email arrived. The first draft of the divorce papers. Sharp, surgical. Every charge documented. Every violation exposed. "You have a solid case," she wrote. "He won't see this coming." By nightfall, he still thought the trip had been canceled. He didn't realize he was the one being erased, line by line, receipt by receipt. By 3:30 p.m., the plan was airtight. Withdrawals scheduled, passwords changed, assets moved like chess pieces across a board he didn't even know existed. Ethan thought the storm had passed. He didn't realize I'd only been clearing the sky for precision. Domains transferred, accounts sealed, every link he'd ever used to reach me cut clean. A full system reset. When he came home, he kissed my cheek, as if nothing beneath our roof had shifted. "Rough day," he muttered. "Something's wrong with the bookings." "Must be a glitch." I gave him a small, practiced smile. "Tech issues are the worst." He poured a drink, turned on the TV, and let the noise fill the silence I'd already reclaimed. He mistook the quiet for peace. But peace isn't what I build. Precision is. Sunday morning arrived with birdsong and deception. I brewed his favorite coffee, Colombian dark roast, 1 sugar, a splash of oat milk, served it in the chipped white mug that said #1 husband. A joke now, though he didn't know it yet. He smiled, still half asleep, and thanked me like a man unaware of his own sentencing. At 7:15 a.m., I said casually, "We need to go over something." He followed me to the kitchen, still in his robe, scrolling his phone like nothing in the world could touch him. The table was already set, 3 folders, an open laptop displaying our joint account, and my grandmother's pearls on black velvet. A domestic still life, rearranged into a courtroom. He sat, blinked. The performance began. I clicked the first tab. $67,000, I said evenly. Transferred to Morrison Holdings. You've never mentioned it. His mouth opened, then closed. The silent dance of a liar choosing a script. Second tab, credit card statement. $18,000 in work travel. Miami, Portland, Chicago. I slid my phone across the table. Clara's posts lined up beside each charge. Same hotels, same weekends, same deceit. His expression shifted from confusion to calculation the moment men like him realize the show might actually be over. "This looks worse than it is," he said, grasping for charm like it was an old jacket that no longer fit. I didn't respond. Third folder, receipts, Botox for his mother, spa days, client dinners, all charged to the business account in my name. "You went through my private files?" he asked, trying to sound indignant. "They weren't private," I said. "You used my money." He leaned back, searching for the story that might save him. "You could have asked me. We're a team, Leah. Teams work through things. I looked at him, really looked. 12 years of dinners, bills, shared silence. And not once had he asked what kept his life running so smoothly. Then his phone buzzed. Clara, the screen lit up. You said she'd be fine with it. He didn't even flinch, didn't silence it, just stared at me like a gambler watching the cards fall wrong. You canceled the trip, he said finally. I did. You used my mother as the excuse. Seemed fitting. He stood, anger rising but still packaged in politeness. This is overreacting, he snapped. You're blowing up our life over a few misunderstandings. A vacation. I nodded once. Exactly. He didn't understand. He never would. His phone buzzed again. Adrian, then Caleb, the chorus of unraveling. I spoke to Maya, I said, standing. The papers are ready. You'll be served by Tuesday. You're divorcing me? He asked, disbelief thick in his voice. Over this? I paused at the doorway, steady, unflinching. Not over this, I said. Over everything that let this happen. Then I left him, sitting at the table with his mug cooling beside his ruins. He didn't follow. Maybe he finally understood that when silence walks away, it never comes back. He built a marriage that depended on me staying quiet. Now silence was the thing dismantling him. I packed like a woman, building an exit, not an escape. Every item I chose was proof of what I'd earned, not what I'd endured. In our bedroom, I folded my life into one carry-on. Passport, laptop, external drive, legal documents, my grandmother's jewelry, the necklace I wore to every negotiation that changed my life. One handbag, no souvenirs, everything else stayed, the dresses he liked, the heels I wore to his galas, the wedding album gathering dust on a shelf we never finished installing, the props of a life I'd stopped believing in. At 9:15 a.m., he appeared in the doorway, arms crossed like a man rehearsing control. Where are you going? I have a flight. Where? East, he scoffed. Running away doesn't fix anything. I met his gaze, steady. It's not running if you know where you're going. Downstairs, the house buzzed with the kind of quiet that comes before an ending. I paused at the door, suitcase locked at my side. He lingered, waiting for the scene he thought he deserved. Tears, regret, one last plea. You'll regret this, he said. I almost smiled. He leaned against the frame, voice soft, almost tender. You won't find anyone who understands you like I do. I looked at him one last time. You never tried to understand me, I said. You just built a life that needed my silence. Then I left. No slammed doors, no grand farewell, just footsteps on wood and the low hum of a zipper trailing behind me like punctuation. Outside, the October air felt clean, the kind of crisp that wipes you clear. The sun threw a long shadow across the driveway. My car waited, the same one he said I didn't need. What would you even drive to? He'd asked. Now I had an answer. I didn't look back. At the airport, I checked in early. Business class, paid in full. My card, my name. The lounge hummed with quiet industry, espresso hissing, light pooling gold on marble counters. I opened my laptop. Subject final confirmation from Maya Cortez. Body, restitution request filed. Court date secured. Discovery begins next week. Attachments, Clara's texts, credit card statements, the group chat thread. Grace had forwarded the latest. Caleb still joking about my fragile little ego. He didn't know his words now lived inside a court file titled Exhibit C, Collusion and Cruelty. A boarding call echoed through the terminal. I closed the laptop, sipped my espresso, and exhaled. The first true breath in years. On the jet bridge, my phone buzzed. Ethan, "We can still fix this." I didn't answer. I powered it off. The plane door sealed behind me, the sound of closure done properly. As the ground fell away beneath the clouds, I lifted my glass of champagne. This wasn't escape, it was emergence. Barcelona waited. Sunlight stretched over terracotta rooftops, the sea breathing calmly beyond the hills. I rented a flat with high windows and quiet mornings. It wasn't big. It didn't need to be. It had a desk, a stove, and silence, finally mine. He once told me silence was weakness. He was wrong. It became the foundation of my freedom. The first few days tasted like freedom, measured in espresso spoons and salt air. Every sound, every step, every sunrise in Barcelona whispered the same thing: you made it out. Morning light spilled across tiled floors, catching on open suitcases and half-sorted papers. I unpacked slowly, one piece of my life at a time. Coffee, walks on cobblestone, citrus markets humming with voices I didn't need to translate. Maya's emails came like clockwork: progress, motions, statements. Ethan's rebuttal arrived, full of accusations and pity, the same blend he used to win sympathy and control. Maya's response was 5 words long: "We have receipts, let him unravel." Grace kept me updated from home, quiet messages, careful timing. She said watching him fall apart felt less like revenge and more like release. I knew exactly what she meant. I didn't need more updates. Grace sent me the rest. Caleb's marriage had cracked. Darren was distancing himself. Sophie's charity gala had collapsed under its own performance. 3 attendees, one of them the caterer. I didn't read those messages with joy, just with clarity. Consequences finally had a face. Mornings belonged to work. Clients back home called it a sabbatical. I called it proof. My strategies hit harder from across the ocean. By week 2, I'd signed 3 new contracts. Word spread fast. The American strategist with European calm. A woman who'd survived something unnamed but unmistakable. One afternoon at Café del Sol, a woman approached me. Navy blazer, leather notebook, sharp eyes that saw things most people missed. "Are you Leah?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm Isabella Ruiz," she said, extending a hand. "A few clients I trust speak highly of you." We talked for an hour under a striped awning, the air thick with espresso and promise. She ran a fund for women in transition, startups, reinventions, rebuilds. "What you did," Isabella said, "takes more than courage. It takes structure. I fund structure." She slid a proposal across the table, a year's work, triple my income, equity included. But her words were the real offer. "You didn't leave a marriage," she said. "You left captivity." That night, I stood on my balcony with a glass of red wine and the city glowing below like an exhale. I thought of every year I'd spent patching cracks in a life that wasn't mine, holding up walls that never deserved to stand. No one waited for dinner now. No one timed my smile. No one budgeted my silence. I thought I might feel lonely, but what I felt instead was untouched, like fresh snow before the first footprint. My phone buzzed once. "Grace, thought you'd want this." Group chat leaked. Caleb's wife posted the screenshots. Public now. I didn't reply. Some stories finally tell themselves when you stop protecting the wrong people. Inside, my laptop glowed with opportunity. Outside, the city waited, wide open, unhurried. No applause, no rescue. Just me, still standing, still becoming. Months moved like ripples, not rushing, just widening. Mornings began with espresso and quiet. Afternoons with meetings, founders, writers, builders. Evenings were mine, rooftop dinners, open notebooks, the gentle architecture of a life chosen on purpose. Back then, I built strategies for other people's empires. Now I was finally building my own. Isabella's contract wasn't a chapter, it was a door. And once it opened, I realized I'd never been rebuilding my career, I'd been rebuilding myself. Her firm became a bridge to 6 others. One introduction turned into 10. Soon, my inbox filled with names of women ready to reclaim what had been taken from them. Not just money, but meaning. They didn't need rescue. They needed strategy. I became the one they called when they were ready to rewrite the ending. Boardrooms, breakups, brand launches, exits. I helped them rebuild not just businesses, but boundaries. Every plan, every deck, every clause carried the quiet precision of survival turned into skill. One client said, "You feel like someone who's been burned, but turned the fire into structure." She was right. Back in the States, Ethan's empire folded in on itself. Maya sent updates when necessary, short, clinical, satisfying. His rebuttals failed, his accounts were frozen. The court ruled, misuse of marital funds, restitution required. He fought it all, and he lost. Grace forwarded a local headline. Ethan's firm was restructuring. Sophie was focusing on wellness. Clara had vanished from social media. No scandal, no spectacle, just absence, the quiet kind that follows accountability. My victory wasn't loud. It didn't trend. It rippled. Months later, I hosted a dinner in Barcelona. 8 women, 6 languages, 5 industries. We talked about leverage, about power, about the architecture of reclaiming yourself. We toasted to quiet wars won in daylight. Someone asked how it all began. I didn't mention Ethan or Clara or any of it. I just said I realized no one was coming to save me. So I started acting like the person who could. Isabella smiled. To sovereign women, she said. Glasses clinked. Laughter lingered. Later that night, walking home beneath Barcelona's honey-lit sky, I passed a small bookshop. In the window, a single title embossed in gold, The Things We Don't Return. I stood there a moment, then stepped inside and bought it. Some things aren't meant to be returned. They're meant to be reclaimed, not as burdens, but as proof. The sea never kept my secrets. It only mirrored them back, calmer, clearer. I once learned control from spreadsheets and survival from chipped mugs. Now I build freedom from silence, blueprint by blueprint. Somewhere, another woman is still sitting in her kitchen, mistaking the silence for surrender. But soon she'll hear it too. That quiet click of a lock turning, the sound of her own becoming. If you've ever learned peace from the ruins, you'll understand what comes next.